Who should be South Africa's Player of the Year in 2023? That's what I'm talking about in this video, a year where they've won the Rugby World Cup, an unbelievable 12 months. Hotly contested category, this one, but in this video I'm explaining who I think should win it. You can have your say in the comments. Welcome back to the channel, and remember to like the video and make sure you're subscribed as well. Also, as we have this part of the year, post-Christmas, just before New Year, I'll probably do a few other videos on the channel as well of that kind of end of year feel to them. So I'm planning to do my alternative rugby awards. If you've got a suggestion for a category in the alternative end of year awards, then drop it in the comments section as well. But for the time being, who should be South Africa's Player of 2023? So these are the nominations. This is from the Springboks, from the South African Rugby Union. So we've got Peter-Steph du Toit, Eben Etzebeth, Kolisi, Frans Malherbe and Damian Willemse. All worthy nominations. So let's run through them and I'll explain at the end who I think should win it ultimately. Peter-Steph du Toit, I mean, he is once again unbelievable in the big games. You look at his performances when it really matters. In those crunch moments, the World Cup final obviously, but also the knockout rounds more generally, and he is just so consistently so good. And I feel like he's a bit of a tone setter for this Springboks team. When we think about the box and you think about the level of physicality, how confrontational they want to be, as they always have wanted to be, and this team is no different. I feel like he is such a staple of that, such a tone setter for them in that back row. Like, he just goes about banging people. He must be terrifying to play against if you're an opposing team, because you know what he is going to bring. An absolute physical specimen, a giant of a man, brilliant, 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 and well worth all the plaudits that he has been receiving. And I think he probably gets into every back row in the world. I was trying to think about this, of what team, what international team wouldn't have Peter-Steph du Toit at 6? And I can't really think of any. When France have all of their options there, and you've got Jelonch in there might be a conversation. Even with England, when Courtney Lawes, before he retired, there might have been a conversation, but I'm not sure any of those would have their current options over Peter-Steph du Toit. He is that good and well worthy of the nomination. Eben Etzebeth up next. He is the premier lock of his generation, I think. There was often a conversation of, was it Maro Itoje or Eben Etzebeth for that? Probably around 2017, a lot of people, particularly here in the Northern Hemisphere, would have had Itoje a bit above Etzebeth. But in terms of consistency, in terms of over a longer period of time, it's 100% Eben Etzebeth. And he, once again, has had a brilliant year. And he's so consistently so good. You look at everything that he does. I think his carrying has improved. I think what he brings in defence and his physicality is brilliant. Obviously, in the line-out, and also from a defensive maul point of view, he is just the all-round second row. So consistent, so good, to the point where you almost get used to it. He's been this good for a long, long time. So again, I think Eben Etzebeth has been excellent. On to Kolisi. Kolisi is an interesting one, right? Because he's the captain. He is the inspirational, emotional heartbeat of this South African team. And I think a really important bridge between the team and the country. And loads of you watching this who are actual Springbok fans will have a much better appreciation and understanding of this than me. But I suppose from my view as an outside eye almost, Kolisi is that guy that links this Springbok team to the country and to the people, and is a major reason why there is such a kind of, I suppose, a love, a connection between the two at the moment. And that shouldn't be underestimated, because I think that higher purpose, playing for a higher purpose, not just the Rugby World Cup, but for South Africa as a whole, is a major or a significant factor in why this team has been successful. I also think it's maybe underappreciated of how good he is. Not within South Africa, I know that. I think more generally across the world, it's not always Kolisi that gets spoken about in terms of the way Etzebeth does, or Peter-Steph du Toit does, or Duane Vermeulen did, or Faf did, or a number of other players in that team. I think would often get mentioned in terms of their rugby ability before Kolisi. People don't always appreciate how good he is. And also, let's not forget, in 2023, he had, frankly, a remarkable return from injury, serious knee injury, to be back in time for the World Cup, and not just back in time, but featuring in all of the big games. Absolutely sensational. So Kolisi, the captain, back-to-back captains. In fact, in most years, I was trying to think again, I was hypothesising. In most World Cup years, when would it even be much of a debate that it's the captain that should win the Player of the Year award? I was trying to think. I think in those New Zealand teams, I suppose you had Dan Carter as well as Richie McCaw, although Carter wasn't there for 2011, he was for 2015, but I think McCaw's getting it most of the time. I was thinking back to the England team. I guess then there would probably be a conversation between Johnny Wilkinson and Martin Johnson, potentially. So maybe it's not too rare that there's a conversation outside of the captain. But I think it actually shows to how many good players there are in this South African team, of how many good contenders there are over Siya Kolisi for the Player of the Year award. Speaking of which, Frans Malherbe. I love this guy. And I love him because in the current guise of professional rugby, there is a demand for all players to be able to do everything. You can't just do one thing anymore. Whereas Frans Malherbe is actually closer to that old-fashioned prop. And I don't mean that as an insult whatsoever, because I think in an age where we are demanding that props can pass and have good feet and are good over the ball and do all this other stuff, for him to still be how good he is in that age where we demand more, I think is a reflection of just the standard he has. He is so effective. He is such a key pillar of that South African scrum, and we know how big a weapon that is. It literally got them out of trouble in that semi-final against England. So I think it's great that Frans Malherbe is getting some of the plaudits that he deserves, because he's not flashy in the way some modern props are, but I think he gets in every single starting 15 in the world, doesn't he? So Frans Malherbe, good on him. And the final nomination, Damian Willemse. This is an interesting one. So he's made, I suppose, first of all, he's the only nominee outside of the forward pack, which I think is pretty telling for where the big strength of this Springbok team is. He's made fullback his own this year. You look at the big games, he started ahead of Willie le Roux. There's maybe still a conversation to be spoken about of in terms of the more traditional fullback, Willie le Roux is the better option, but I think Damian Willemse has been exceptional. I think he has been part of that back line that has been younger, that have expanded their game. I think he's been excellent in an attacking sense. And the fact that he has ousted le Roux to the starting 15 shirt for a lot of those key matches in the World Cup is a real testament to him and what he's been able to do over 2023. And I'm excited actually to see where he goes, what his growth is moving forward. Le Roux, 34 now. How much longer will he be part of the Springboks? I think Damian Willemse could be the starting 15 for a long time. So who should be South Africa's Player of the Year in 2023? I think, as I've just run through, there are no wrong answers here, but for me, I'm giving it to Eben Etzebeth. Having been out in France and watched him, I think his significance to this team is massive. As I say, he's the best lock of his generation. He was excellent in the engine room of that Springbok side, so consistently brilliant that I would go for Eben Etzebeth over those other guys. But Peter-Steph du Toit, Siya Kolisi, Frans Malherbe, there's so many good options there. For me, my nomination would go to Eben Etzebeth. Who would you choose for your South African Men's Player of the Year in 2023? Let me know in the comments section. Don't forget, if you've got a suggestion for the alternative end-of-year rugby awards, then you can whack it in the comments as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, enjoy the rest of the festive period, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next one.